Who do you have to have in your AFL Fantasy and SuperCoach side? That's one of the big questions that we are asking right throughout the preseason. The opening round games happening throughout this weekend, and as important as they are, our eyes are firmly fixed on that Thursday night match between Richmond and Carlton, because that's when the rolling lockout commences, and all of a sudden, with every game of next weekend, you just lose that chance to make the change to your side. But who are the non-negotiable selections in your squads of 30 in AFL Fantasy and 31 in SuperCoach and Dream Team? Who are the guys that I would say you just gotta have them? These are my 7 non-negotiable selections for your fantasy footy side for 2025. If you've got some different ones, comment in below. Let me know. Who for you is, have you got more? Have you got less? I want to know your non-negotiable selections. These are mine. Number 1, Jackson Macrae. To me, he is an absolute non-negotiable this year. He's priced unbelievably cheap, forward eligible, and playing back in a midfield role that we know historically has been great for him. And he's gone into a team's ecosystem, that is St Kilda, that is so favourable to what he is. Throw in the fact that their third best midfielder in Mateus Philippou is out. It really now depends on the double jacks of Macrae and Steele to get it done in this St Kilda midfield. Opportunity for days, role for days, value for days, and in our forward lines, if you're looking for divergence and separation anywhere, none of the guys on the list are players that I would be looking to build it off. I have Jackson Macrae as one of my 7 non-negotiable starting selections. Talking about former Dogs, I got a couple of them. Caleb Daniel is another of those. Again, forward eligible for us, playing in a role in a new team that has got 2 great elements for us. One, a historical pedigree now for almost half a decade of playmakers from North Melbourne in that halfback line, scoring phenomenally for us in fantasy football. Sheasel, Fisher. Do I really need to go any later? Okay, I will. Hall, Zeeble. They have turned guys that have been notoriously unrelevant in fantasy football into incredibly relevant. Nobody else is in that playmaking spot. He's taking kick-ins and he's getting handball receives. He is the playmaker off halfback. You throw that into the mix with the fact that he's got this 90s plus historical average of delivering numbers in this role when he was at his former team, the Bulldogs. It's just a non-negotiable to me. I'm putting Caleb Daniel there. And to wrap up the trio of Dogs, or former ones anyway, Bailey Smith. I know maybe for some this is a bit controversial, but honestly, at his price point, no stoppage in the early buy, so he's going to play through every single week. He's got that midfield role secure. He's priced at a place where any risk profile you think that is there on rests is just not a factor for me anymore. And now his ownership is at unbelievable heights. Throw in his historical scoring pedigree of what he has done on the inside and outside at the Western Bulldogs. He is the best midfielder at Geelong. As far as I'm concerned. That's no shade on Holmes. That's no shade on Deidre. I just think he's walking straight in and he's going to pick up exactly where we left off. I think people are going to be surprised just how good Bailey Smith is. I'm bullish on him. In fact, that's why he's in this list of 7 non-negotiable selections for your AFL Fantasy and SuperCoach side. He is in there. We've done a couple of ex-Dogs. Let's stay with the Dogs. Sam Davidson. I think if you don't have Davidson in your starting squad, the only reason is simply this. One of the greatest shocks of all time heading into round 1 happens, and the Dogs don't select him. He is, if you want to have an on-field forward cash cow, he is the one I would do it. His role is stable. He is the attacking wingman. His ability to score through a bunch of different variables, not just through transition, but also at stoppage points. His ability to get involved in the scoring chains is absolutely incredible, and his work rate to get up and down between the flanks is as good as I can recall seeing from I know he's a mature ager, but a first-year player. Davidson is, if you want a fieldable forward rookie, this is the one to do it. Do you have to have a rookie at F6? No. Depending on how you skin the cat of the other 20-plus selections in your side, you don't have to. But to me, Davidson is non-negotiable. You want to know my last 3? Have I got ones that are in your team right now? I hope for your sake that is the case. Clayton Oliver, to me, is also a non-negotiable. As the season gets on, I think he's only going to get better for us. But the appetite is there, the work rate is there, the defensive efforts is there, and he still sits in a team that desperately needs him to be at or close enough to his best. And the good news is with Clayton Oliver, while he does have the pedigree of a 110-plus guy in fantasy and a 120-plus guy in SuperCoach, to return a worthwhile return on investment, he doesn't have to be anywhere near that. We're talking about a guy that just can limp into the mid-90s in AFL fantasy and just creep over the 100 marker in SuperCoach. And that is more than a worthwhile average, more than a worthwhile return. And the good news is we know that that's just within the bottom end of his historical pedigree and potential. So to me, Clayton Oliver is not someone to mess with. I know the 3 goals won't happen every week like it did in the community series, but I also don't think the experimentation that we saw through that midfield rotation is going to be something too concerning to me. So to me, those are 5 of my 7 non-negotiables: Macrae, Daniel, Smith, Davidson, and Clayton Oliver. I've got just 2 more. Jaden Short, I've got as a non-negotiable selection. Going big on this one. The amount of commentary I'm hearing out of Richmond and seeing in the community series is damning to anybody trying to fade Short as far as I'm concerned. He is the best ball user off their half-back line. I'll hear the conversation that in 12 months' time, some of their other youngsters might have emerged, but right now it is him. He is the most penetrating kick in their list, and the ball is going to live back there. Their midfielder at stoppage is competitive. Taranto, Hopper, it's competitive. But their work on the outside, teams are going to torch them when the game opens up on transition. So I do see a lot of ball back there. And I've heard multiple interviews now, Adam Uze talk about the desire for their team to control the ball out of defensive 50 better than they have and to slow the game down. And that's because he's aware they do not have the speed and the skill that they had in the Premiership era to be able to execute that as well as they did. So Jaden Short, I think you throw those variables in the mix, and now the fact that he's at the price point that is so much cheaper than he has been. He's a historical mid-90s guy. To get what he is at this price point, with those opportunities, with this commentary around it, I'm bullish on what Short could be. I think he can absolutely, and well, to me, he's a non-negotiable to start the year. And then the last one, Levi Ashcroft. The absence of that early buy now with the news that opening round they're out of, they and Geelong, the Brisbane Lions, that is, not he, but he's a part of that, are in round 3. He's not got any stunting to that cash generation, much like others, like an Essendon rookies or so many of the Gold Coast players that roll through there as well. There's no stunting. So to me, you can run him through. The comments that continue to come out of Brisbane Lions talk about how they would have played him last year if he was on the list, let alone that he's here now. He's looked good. I see him developing exactly how his brother did, with only, sort of 20-ish% centre-bouts presence in games, and a lot of time coming off the wing, a lot of time coming off the flanks. But because his smarts is so good, his ball use is so good and clean, they want him on the field. They're going to get him involved in the game. And I think he's going to be that sort of 70s plus sort of averaging midfielder for us this year. I'm really confident about what he's going to be. And the Lions do have a nice early fixture for midfielders. So those are my 7 non-negotiables. And this is across format. In different formats, I'd have different guys and I'd put them in there. I've got some others that I'm very bullish on, but I'd hear the case and argument for doing that. For example, if you wanted to go full set and forget rucks with a Gawn and a Cherry, I'd at least hear that. I don't think Tom De Koning is a non-negotiable. I think he's pretty vital and pretty critical. And if you're not running set and forget without him, yeah, Tom De Koning's pretty special in that spot. But is it a non-negotiable? No, that fails the premise of this episode. So Macrae, Daniel, Smith, Davidson, Oliver, Ashcroft, and Short. Who do you say is a non-negotiable player to have in your starting squads in 2025? I'd love to know. If you're watching this on YouTube, comment below and let me know. Make sure you've subscribed to the channel if you haven't already done so. We do so greatly appreciate that. And if you're listening to this as an audio podcast, get in touch with us across social media. The details are in the description of this episode. We'd love to know who, for you, are the non-negotiable starters for 2025. Well, footy is back. Enjoy it over this weekend. Hopefully you learned some things. We got our takeaway episodes dropping throughout the weekend too, with our first reflections and observations, Q&A, another strategy roundtable, and a ton more is coming here on the channel before we get to the start of round one. Thursday night, we cannot wait. Fantasy Footy is back for 2025.